these were Harvard engineers and Harvard MBAs, and so they want to know, what is my source of intelligentsia? And so let me just share with you. So we're going to talk about corporate systems and pneumaticos. I'll talk about that a little bit more, and then prophetic functioning in corporate systems, and then you can ask some questions. So who am I? I went to Washington University, and I studied chemical engineering 4 years. I was going to go to Princeton, so I was going to end up Bishop C. right in New Jersey anyway. But my father felt like that was too far because I lived in St. Louis, was born there. He thought it was too far. He didn't ask me not to go, but because I felt his heartbeat, then I said, I'll just stay and go to the best school in the region. And it was a good choice. And so I got my bachelor's in chemical engineering there. It was some years ago, and so it was a time when they weren't too nice to black people back then, especially if you're black female. I had a rough time, I'm gonna tell you right now, so I needed God. So when you had the Muslims in their classrooms and they turning toward the east and praying, I was doing the same thing. I secured my classroom and I turned to my God and I asked him for help, because although while I'm studying and I'm performing on my exams, when you have professors who are grading you inaccurately to flunk you out because you're the only black one in the class, you need Jesus. And while I'm praying and talking to God, he's now downloading me with information that I could take into the classroom and show them where their models were wrong and where their theories were wrong, and that got them off my back. That got them. So when it comes to the prophetic, I'm trying to ensure that I'm integrating and sprinkling on what I'm sharing the fact that the prophetic doesn't drop on you one day. You are born with this thing. The Lord said to Jeremiah, before I formed you in the belly, I knew, sanctified, and ordained you a prophet to the nations. And it didn't just start. So I went there, and then I got my bachelor's in chemical engineering. I did some research with Merck. That's how I got to New Jersey. I came to New Jersey, so it was the will of God anyway that I be in New Jersey. They recruited me at Merck, and I performed research chemical engineering for them for about 7.5 years. I invented some medicines, or co-invented Singulair, some asthma drugs, an AIDS drug, things of that nature. Proscar for prostate cancer in men. Prayerfully, nobody in here is taking that and needs it. And so then I wanted to have an effect on the direction of businesses, and not just on inventing medicines, but again, it was the leading of the Lord. And I went and I pursued an MBA at the Wharton School, and I've got actually three MBAs, but 2 that are technical, and that one in finance. I got that third one, but they only allowed you to get 2. So I actually satisfied those requirements. Why am I saying that? I'm saying that because what we actually need when it comes to the earth, right? Faith moves heaven, but money moves the earth. So you have to know how to manage money. I don't care what your discipline. It doesn't matter your career. It doesn't matter if you jump, dance, and shout around the church. The bottom line is we need to understand that element that moves the earth. And so I made sure I understood money, strategic management, making sure that we are competitive and that we now win against those that are colleagues in our industry, right? And then entrepreneurial management is not just starting companies, it's now expanding that company, moving into new markets, whether it's joint ventures, mergers, acquisitions, things of that nature. And so along with a chemical engineering degree, in addition to understanding finance and money, as well as strategies, when you are number one, the best thing you can do in your number one position is put as much space and distance between you and number 2. So remember that, and that's what strategic intelligence will provide you. So now with all of this, I came from a church that said that going to school was of the devil. They said that if you go to these university halls, you're going to go and get that devil education, baby. They're going to turn you away from God, baby. And I said, well, I'm going to just have to go and get this devil's education and come back and tell the church what he said. Because when God is leading and guiding you, there are certain doors you're not going to get into unless you got some degrees and letters behind your name. That is what gets you access into these systems. Why do we need to get into these systems? Because there's stuff going on in these systems. These are companies that I dealt with. These are companies that I give guidance to. These are companies that I've helped to solve problems, and they were oftentimes based on having a dream or an open-eyed vision. I was speaking to a CEO once, and based on the fact that the information is classified, I can only share certain things, but a CEO, and I had solved an issue for him, and so the Holy Ghost told me to say something to him. He said, talk to him and tell him about the North Star while we were having a conversation. And it was the board that was sitting around, and the Holy Ghost said, tell him that you envision a North Star. Just say the North Star. And I saw, how did I know that? The Holy Ghost, he gave me a picture. He flashed this bright yellow star in front of me. During the conversation, you got to know how to hold your water while you're in the meeting, and then you see a vision and you turn around. So you got to know how to navigate. You got to know how to operate within lanes, right? You got to know how to switch lanes, then come back and bring what you got from that unseen realm. And so God said, now speak to him regarding the North Star. And I'm like, all right, you ain't got time to now deliberate with God and say, now what does that mean? And what are you trying to say? So what I did was I said, you know what? I envision in this initiative a North Star. The CEO started screaming, literally. He started screaming, and he said, like he was, you know how when somebody, when your song pops up on the radio, or when somebody, is singing, the worship tune that just takes you in, and you're like, hey, the CEO did that. He said, hey. And this is a man that doesn't talk much. So people were wondering, Marcia, that's what they call me. They don't call me prophetess. They said, Marcia, what did you do to him? Well, at that point, you got to know. Sit down there and don't say nothing else. And then listen. And what he said was, you know what? I was born in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. And I've got North Stars all over my office. And I know what you're saying is the truth. I'm just giving some examples. That's all. I'm just saying. So at Merck, the Holy Ghost would tell me what was coming. And people there said, if you want to know anything that's going on in this company, ask Marcia, because she got a crystal ball. So I'm not trying to tell you your phone number, because you know your number. But what it does, why is that important? It's important because it gets me, then they call on you for everything. And they're paying you for what they call it. Come on, church, or people, or wherever you from. So these are the companies I help. I know my time is fleeting. So I've dealt with the entire healthcare system, right? From pharmaceuticals to biotechnology and all of that, to inventing medicines and things like that. And I don't deal with middle management. I only deal with CEOs and presidents and vice presidents of companies. Why? Because they got the pocketbook first, right? And secondly, they can make things happen in the organization. I ain't trying to operate up. I'm not trying to fight up. It's a matter of now pursuing and acquiring from the top down. Let's go into this piece right here. So when it comes to industry, the reason why we need any of these industries, and as you can see here, we're looking at medicines being developed, and we're looking at telecommunications, and any industry that you can think of. The reason why we have them when it comes to needing these enablements is because of sin. So I wouldn't need medicines, I wouldn't need pharmaceuticals if it wasn't because of sin. If I didn't have folks breaking into, my Facebook account, I wouldn't need cybersecurity. Come on, think about it. Sin is big business. Pharmaceuticals, come on, look at all the industries that have been generated because of sin. We need the FDA because of sin, because some folk want to make drugs that'll kill you. And by the time that you recognize it done offed your mama, they done made $20 billion, and they know it. And if you sue them for $10 million, it doesn't matter, because they got what? They got the rest of the $20 billion that they made. And so they expect you to sue them. And so sin is big business. Yes, it is. We need policing because of sin. We need passwords because of sin. Come on, y'all. And so because of that, these systems do exist. And when it comes to these systems, when we're talking about research, what is research? It's meaning again. Search. I got to search again because I've been cut off from the garden. And so now we have to go in and figure out and discover and innovate what God had already made available in the garden. So while they're innovating and while they're studying and while they're going in and trying to figure stuff out, at the end of the day, they're now breaking and entering. And because they're breaking and entering, you think that they can't? Remember Jesus, when they were dealing with the wedding and the wedding feast, and Jesus told the parable about one that got in illegally, and they turned around and said, how did you get in here? How are you changing our DNA and genetic codes? How are you breaking in like that? Now what you want to do is you want to make a hybrid of a horse and a man so you can work him to death and he don't go on strike. Come on, y'all. And in these systems, what God needs are prophets that will now go and govern and protect and guard and put up do not enter signs when it comes to now restructuring our DNA to make us robots. So now when it comes to this, that's why you need degrees, so that you can go and stand in these boardrooms and stand in the king's court, and you now are head and shoulders above the rest.